Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Audible Waters podcast. I am your host, Ralph Jesperson. Last week I talked about the fourth time I saw Jesus Christ in a dream. I also talked about another dream I had that same night right after it, where I prophesied in it that civil wars and a great amount of rioting was coming to Western countries soon, and that those that love Jesus need to get prepared to minister to the wounded in these upcoming conflicts. If you did not watch that episode yet, I recommend that you do so, which you can watch right here. Before continuing with this video and the ones following, as I have a three-part series I am now starting on the coming second U.S. Civil War. Now, on January 15th, 2021, I had a dream about some people claiming to be Christians who are now preparing for this coming war. This is not the first time this thing has happened, as many Christians were wounding, maiming, and killing each other over slavery and the states' rights issues in the 1860s. Some 160 years later, here we are going again. So here it is, my dream, as I wrote it down right after waking up that morning in a format that you can read or listen to, or both.
This new dream started with me entering a right-wing, Christian, militia group meeting making plans to prepare for a bloody civil war with leftist groups like Antifa and any leftist politicians they can find. It was a smallish room, but it was packed with people. I soon learned that because of schedule conflicts and the space limitations, they would have another meeting in 2 days for more militia members with different leaders. In that meeting they went over a bunch of things that they had prepared with pictures, cards, and things they had pulled off of social media sites and the internet. They had things to talk about, like a bunch of right-wing conspiracy theories about the enemy, lists of leftists to look out for, plans for making IEDs, lessons they had gotten on training from other militia groups and the U.S. Army, and the like. They were preparing for full-blown war. They were fundraising for weapons and ammo. At the end of the long meeting they dropped all of the sheets of propaganda and plans, and I quickly scooped them up and made a hasty exit. I found myself later at the house of an old member of the singles group I once was a part of in real life, a lady. She was a member of this militia and was talking about the meetings. Maybe I learned about the location and time from her? The next thing I knew, it was 2 days later and I returned to the site with all of their propaganda in hand. The building was full again with different people, and the lady who was speaking and leading the meeting was also an early member of this church group and the only face there that I recognized. I started handing her the materials they used in the last meeting for her to speak from as I was holding them all. I soon interrupted her just to let everyone there know I was not for their militia, as I am someone who is going to stay totally neutral in the coming conflict. They started to get upset and to complain, asking what the hell was wrong with me and wanting me to leave. But I interjected with this: "Are you sure that you really want all Christians to take your side and support your violent cause?" Then I pointed to an armband I was wearing on my left sleeve. It was the symbol of the Red Cross, as I said, "Don't you want some Christians to be able to tend to your wounded without being harassed and stopped by your enemies? Only neutral parties are going to be able to cross the lines to get to the wounded to take them to the hospitals." Then I woke up.
This particular dream is one of the most clear and direct ones I have ever received. There are people getting ready to do some very evil things in spite of claiming that they are Christians. Again, this is not new, for the Bible is full of God's chosen people, namely the Jews, planning and carrying out evil from early in their history, right up to wanting to kill the Apostle Paul in Jerusalem. Church history is also full of this. Just look at the many centuries of war in, quote, Christian Europe. Nations were led by, quote, Christian kings who kept killing each other, both warriors and civilians alike, even though both peoples claimed to be Christian. These could be considered a kind of civil war within Christianity, and there have been many more of those than wars where a Christian nation went to war with a pagan one or an Islamic one. Even Jesus warned that wars and rumors of them would keep continuing until the end. And yet, the same Jesus said it is the peacemakers who are blessed, while those that choose to live by the sword were also doomed to die by it as well. My dream does not require much interpretation, but I will add some things to those things that are not immediately clear. God blesses peacemakers, and peacemakers cannot, by default, be biased and taking sides. I am currently an independent voter, as I do not see truly Christian values actually being followed in practice by any of the political parties I know of on this planet. Also, a thing called party spirit is declared to be simply evil in the Bible and not something we are supposed to be a part of. My party is the one and only Jesus. I can be faithful and follow no other. My allegiance is to his kingdom, not any human party, flag, or merely temporary nation like the USA. This is a test life, not my permanent home. He wants us to love and help others, not take up sides in order to kill other men who are, in fact, created in the image of God. Destroying the image of God on earth is most certainly not what we are called to do. In this dream, I proclaimed this neutrality to the warring factions and my intention to do as much good as I can and not support murder and violence. So, the facts are that the violent militias do already exist and that there are spiritual powers that we cannot see that are successfully promoting them at this time. There are spirits of war, hatred, and racism that will go to an Antifa meeting and suggest things to their human leaders that they repeat to their followers. Then they will leave that meeting and travel to a Proud Boys meeting and suggest the same exact things to them. Now, their politics claim to be opposite, but their methods and behavior is identical. These powers are real, and they have been given permission to do what they are doing. In my opinion, because of the evil that professing Christians are doing all around the world without actually repenting and turning away from it. Much of this evil may not be what specifically you are doing, but there is plenty of evidence that others calling themselves Christians are doing them. For instance, not everyone is actively involved right now in immorality, but most all are involved in some form of idolatry today. And God hates all idolatry according to our Bible. We Christians will be forced to choose between peacemaking, or war making? Will we see our political preferences as something worth killing for? Will we support war or try to make peace? Will we want to help the wounded, the refugees, and the masses caught in the middle, or will we see our own cause as just in spite of the very high price that others end up paying in trying to bring that about? So, I believe the reasons why I saw two women that I knew in the past as members and even a leader of a militia is to highlight how surprising it will be for many about who does actually participate in the bloodshed once it starts. These two real people are not the ones that I would naturally think would join a militia nor want to murder others for merely political reasons, and so it will be when this time comes. I had a brother, now long dead, who loved weapons and many times repeated fantasies of getting a chance at shooting some evil men who were trying to do him harm. When he died, friends carried out of his house huge ammo containers with enough ammo to kill hundreds of people. But there are already many we would never suspect who will carry out the violence or support it with their words or with their donations and actual material support. This is what our forefathers have seen and done time and time again. Many were the Americans who had extended family who ended up joining up with both the Confederate and Union armies. Relatives shot at each other back then, and so it will be again. Many were drawn into the conflict eventually by having an army occupy their land and even kill their relatives who were not combatants but just were in the wrong place at the exact wrong time. Shame and fear were weapons used to try to coerce people to take up sides, and so it will be again. It will take courage to stand up and publicly proclaim neutrality and to assist the victims instead of helping the perps to harm their fellow man. And yet we should love our enemies without helping them to commit violence. There will be plenty of pressure from politicians and even, quote, church leaders to choose a side and support it without question, even more than we are already seeing currently. And the rhetoric is already just the craziest I have ever heard in my lifetime from our leaders. I do not believe that these two specific persons have or will join militias, although anything is possible and I could be wrong. I would not be surprised, however, if they got sucked into supporting a side because of others shaming them into it and or fear of what the radical left might do, or because someone they know and love gets wounded or killed by one of the factions. This points to a reality that people you know will end up involved in this evil that you currently will never expect to do such a thing. My other thought about this is that both of these people I saw, who I recognized, were women. Now, we tend to think of men when it comes to the ones leading militias, carrying guns, and doing violence. Yet, this points to perhaps the excesses of the feminist movement coming back upon itself. There may very well be a surprising number of women actively involved on both sides. It may also point to, again, how surprised we are going to be at who takes up violence and who makes excuses for it or actively supports it. We may end up with more women involved in this than in any other civil war in this planet's history. When this starts, the wise will make known their neutrality to the powers pushing the violence and offer up their service in helping with the wounded without any partiality. There will be a great need for these people, and the more who have the courage to volunteer and the practical love for others out there ministering, the better. Jesus loves people regardless of their political affiliation. He wants them to follow him and learn how to be good priests on this planet. He died to save us from hell and to show us what the love of God actually looks like. He gave us a new commandment to love one another. May we prepare our hearts and lives to actually do what he has ordered us to do. So, if you believe that this is the destiny we are soon headed into, you should be very curious as to just what, in general, this civil war will look like when it comes. How hot or cold will the violence be? How to best prepare for it? What should we reasonably expect, as it could take a number of different forms? I think God has shown me some hints in the 2 additional dreams I will go over in the next 2 parts. While very few people will likely ever pay any attention to these videos I am making, I share them so that if God wants to direct certain individuals towards them for their own good, that he can. If I do not make these and put these up, he cannot. I share because I care, although I do not expect anyone to like what I'm sharing right now. It is not what we typically think of as good news, not by a long shot. But God did warn his people of what was coming for them, for those who had ears to hear the bad news in the days of the Old Testament prophets. God does not change. May something that I have shared here be useful to someone in the future.